It's Monday night, and you know what that means. It's time for the Newell and the Amazon University Esports Clash Royale competition for spring 2021. My name is Counterfeit.
And my name is Rook.
Alongside Patrick on the production desk, it's time to get back to our third week of Clash Royale. Alongside our sponsors, Unite Students, Logitech G, and Twitch Student. Of course, also thank you to our fellow casters you met last week, Ampulio and Dr. Watson. That means we're almost halfway through our Clash Royale spring competition already.
And if you don't know, or if you want to obviously get some more information about it, the playoffs are on Monday, the 29th of March, and only the top 8 point scorers will be making it there. You get maximum 500 points a night, and the standings are that Chocoholic is in that first place at 850 points, Mushroom right below at 660, and We'll See are trailing right now at only 400.
Yeah, so while Exeter's Chocoholic wasn't able to follow up on that stunning first time victory with another win, they still took second place, so that leaves them on the top of the scoreboard. And Chocoholic still performed well, managed to take out Will CR on the way to the finals. Of course, the largest accolades for last week need to go to Mushroom from the University of Bath, who made the big leap up from 4th in week 1 to 1st in week 2.
Returning to that consistency for Mushroom, it's great to see, but Chocoholic teased us with a solid win at the start of last week's finals, but after winning that game at the very end of overtime, they just couldn't catch a break. Let's go to the last game on the finals, where Chocoholic just couldn't get past Mushroom's Goblin Cages with his Ram Rider and Mega Knight deck, eventually falling victim to his Royal Giant and Lightning as well, and making it 3-1 overall to Mushroom, and their very first victory of that season.
And if you are just tuning in for the first time, but just to let you guys know how everything's going to be working, so we'll be seeing a double elimination today, so best of 3 between all of our players, so 2 losses and you're out of the competition entirely. But if you can remain undefeated through the upper bracket, which is where everybody starts, then you get a bonus win in the best of 5 grand finals.
Absolutely, and it's great to see as well. We've also got these bans that really do start to shake up that meta. Single card per player per burst of 3, sure, but it makes such a difference. Completely blows open those strategic possibilities. It's trying to look at the trends, look at what those most powerful cards are if you don't want to necessarily deal with them. Or player-specific stuff as well. We have always mentioned things like maybe the Royal Giant or some kind of balloon for Mushroom to ban against Mushroom. Obviously, Sopro banning away one of those hogs. There are a couple of alternate cards, however, and that's something to keep in mind as well. It doesn't lock players out of their strategies necessarily. It's all about that flexibility. For example, last week's finals, Mushroom banned away the Lava Hound, and Chocoholic banned away Mushroom's Graveyard, which is obviously a really strong card in the meta, and Mushroom was often relying on pretty heavily. So, in the end, it led to Mushroom leveraging that heavily, leveraging the kind of other decks that they played heavily and proving that they do have that flexibility and that consistency that we know they have.
Yeah, and of course, if you've seen Will before, you know that suddenly their air power is not to be underrepresented. So for them, taking away their Lava Hand makes all the difference as well. We're keeping a close eyes on how that's going to change across this week, of course. As we mentioned, for Mushroom, they've managed to still find that consistency even with the Graveyard removed. They've got that flexibility. Same for Chocoholic. They actually were saying, even though they came second last week, they feel like this style of banning favors them particularly well because they've got a lot of different decks with very different win conditions.
Yeah, it's also really interesting to see Mushroom ban Lava Hound against Chocoholic, because in the matchup between Chocoholic and Will, Chocoholic themselves went, don't want any of that Lava Hound, really going to take it away from Will here. So I think it's a fascinating situation which we're finding ourselves in, where players still aren't entirely sure what they want to take away and what people are happy to just play without.
Yeah, and I think possibly some of that is, just seeing the Mushroom and Will, great friends, training, playing together, and that Will, who's known for playing the Lava Hand, that has worked pretty well against Mushroom in the past. So I think players are learning from their own games, their own wins, their own losses, but they're also trying to look and see what's working against their opponents from other players.
Absolutely. And we do actually have the bans for this upcoming game. Will banned away Balloon, and Mushroom banned away the Royal Recruits. I actually think it's a really great call. Obviously, from both sides, I think taking away Balloon from Mushroom makes a lot of sense. But those Royal Recruits, for Will. He utilizes them well, really plays around the pressure that they provide if he's trying to play that split push strategy. And it's great to see players starting to wise up that he shouldn't be let to have them.
All right, let's get into the first game of the day. Will from Bournemouth University on the bottom of your screen. Mushroom from University of Bath up on the top. We know that Mushroom, having won last time around, is certainly the favourite, but ultimately, it was Chocoholic who took Will out of the competition, so it's still very close between the two.
Yeah, and we know that Will certainly does have a decent record versus Chocoholic, especially when it counts, so you've got to keep that in mind. Some good damage and almost getting rid of that shield. It will be easy to dispatch, and the Prince also just distracted towards that mid.
Yeah, we can see with these cheap units, great way to redirect that Dark Prince's aggro and ultimately lead to no damage being done whatsoever. Very, very efficient on the Elixir. And we've already seen a fair bit of Mushroom's deck. We'll see what those last ones are, because it's, yes, the double Prince in here for Will. Lots of charging power.
I'm surprised to see this Prince into an Electro Wizard. It loses a lot of its power because it doesn't get that charge there. So an interesting trade forward, but obviously it will come through pretty solidly. Does counter Wizards generally quite well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big problem, isn't it, for these charge units. You've got a lot of different ways of dealing with them. You know, even if they're not being Electro Wizard, they're still having skeletons thrown out in front of them. As we've got the poison ticking away, of course. This is the Mushroom special. And we know that we didn't see a ban on Graveyard this time.
Yeah, and that is a chance for Will to bring it out on their own. They're so happy to play many of these different compositions, and they're finding a little bit of damage here. Won't quite be taking the lead because already Mushroom has found a lot of damage onto that bottom right-hand tower.
Yeah, looking pretty good here for Mushroom so far. A little bit of split damage for the Bournemouth University student Will, as the Princes will keep on making their way out, but so far it seems like the Graveyard has been the waiting way to go. Snowball trying to open up some space. The double Prince charge is still going to get stopped in its tracks by the Electro Wizard as the Valkyrie absorbs nearly all of the damage.
And that would have been such a big push as well with that Knight. It would have found so much value, but unfortunately, that Electro Wizard does so much to stop it. There's some good damage onto the right-hand tower, and Mushroom does still have that big advantage.
So, for Will, they've got to try and find a way through. The Inferno Tower will make it very difficult to get big units through. There is the Graveyard coming back in again, but the poison is there to match it. We have seen people banning out the poison to stop this very effective cost counter.
Yeah, we certainly have, and Mushroom is using it effectively there to get a good defense in, and they have so much ability to chip as we go into the later parts of this game, as it looks like no tower's quite going to fall just yet.
So we've still got another charge coming in, another double Prince push. The Valkyrie again is there to absorb all of the pressure. It's another attempt with the Graveyard on the right-hand side, but there's not a ton of damage getting put through. Still, Will is behind on the left-hand side if we do get all the way through overtime.
Yeah, great usage there and timing for that Graveyard, but they're still not ahead. 300, even more of a deficit right now, as Will's Miner is getting so much chip damage in.
That's what you need right now. These are two incredibly well-matched competitors. Every single point counts. Again, dropping down the Miner, the Snowball to drive them away and give time for the Hunter to come in, but the damage is still being done, this trade for trade, as it's going to be the poison dropping down as well. Mushroom knows they've got a pretty major advantage to work with.
Their major advantage is that they've been able to dispatch these double Princes multiple times with such an immense amount of value. The Graveyard here is not necessarily well placed, and that could be a big problem. They take a lot of damage, but it's not enough to be able to finish things up here.
Yeah, there we go. There's the Miner again, getting their hits in with the Valkyrie back up as well. Down to 280. We know that the poison will be cashed in every time it's available, but that does mean the Graveyard has no immediate counter. Mushroom could be in trouble here with the Prince coming in across the bridge. No!
Oh, unfortunate. The poison just proved too much. I actually thought with a great Graveyard there, Will could have potentially made that comeback with one charge from that Prince. It could have turned the tables, but unfortunately wasn't quick enough. And also, Mushroom had those skeletons in the back pocket. So many ways to play around these Princes.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like, that was the experiment being run there by Will. They certainly pride themselves on being adaptable and trying to stay ahead. We have spotted this out as a deck that has risen in popularity recently, but whether it was intentional or not, Mushroom had incredible answers, and I don't know if we see those double Princes coming in again when they were so harshly countered.
It felt like they got basically nothing every single time. It was a Valkyrie and the Electro Wizard, and it all just fell apart. Electro Spirit to start things off for Will here as he's just cycling around.
Yeah, it's one we haven't seen a ton of, but it's very, very effective, especially once the board starts to fill up with all manner of marvelous things. Will's going to be bringing out the Electro Wizard themselves, whereas Mushroom, definitely switching style, has the Baby Dragon in the air.
Yeah, I think a solid call here. Chain Lightning going through, and it's going to be Electro Giant. We have not seen much of this, but oh, it's not tanking it up. It's the Baby Dragon who's eaten all that damage. The Inferno Dragon is now starting to really wreak havoc. With the Mega Knight to clean things up, they will be able to eventually dispatch it, but at what cost here? So much damage.
Yeah, the Electro Giant zapping away and resetting the Inferno Dragon means it just wasn't able to get the charge up, and this means a solid counterattack coming now for Will. But there's the Goblin Cage. We saw it, as we mentioned before, in the finals. An incredibly effective defensive building.
Yeah, it just brings so much to the fore. An interesting investment of the Bandit there as well. Will has a lot of options, but with a lot of the responses that Mushroom has and some really off-piste card selections, especially in the Electro Giant, maybe they don't have the right kind of questions.
Oh boy, this is looking like a disaster for Will. Very close to becoming a 2-0 in favor of their student, Mushroom, who, as we've seen, has learned a heck of a lot over the course of these competitions. Mega Knight entering the fray. One more card to be revealed from both sides.
Yeah, and it's going to have to be something special from Will here, because it feels like right now they just don't have a way on in. Dark Prince comes on in to try and counteract that. Will look to get the charge, does get the damage. That Electro Wizard able to deal with a lot of what this Baby Dragon wants to do here means that as much as they are going to get rid of the Mega Knight, there's a lot of units pushing on in here, and that Tornado is going to be massive to try and deny it back.
Yeah, I mean, the Goblin Cage does such an incredible job of gumming up the ground. We've got one unrevealed card from Will here. If it was the answer to that particular conundrum, you'd have to imagine he would have used it already, but we shall see.
He has to have had it in hand. Ram Rider goes out to get some chip damage on this left-hand tower, knows that they have to try and play for this overtime now, trying to deny this right-hand push, but a lot of damage coming in here. You've got to be ever so careful, and they're already making that push happen. One misstep here, Will needs to answer instantly.
At least this time round, there is no direct damage, but we have got the lightning to consider. There is not much health left on the right-hand Prince's Tower, so if Mushroom can afford to pay for the lightning, then they will be able to bring the thunder. The charge in again stops on the left-hand side. We're into sudden death, and it's not looking good for Will.
It really isn't. Baby Dragon distracted will be able to eventually get rid of that Bandit. And Electro... Oh, 50 HP just auto! But it's not enough. The Baby Dragon just can't get that hit on in. But if it's a cycle again from Mushroom, they just need to hit that one spell. There's so little time on the board from Will. And maybe it's not enough as well. They have to invest units to just gum up that Ice Wizard.
And I don't know if we're going to afford to run the Mega Knight right at the back, because they're losing time. Well, we've got the last bit of damage. Where's it going to come from? One hit from anything will do it. And of course, the lightning is ever present. I think this is just a matter of time now, as again, Will's attack going to falter just on the other side of the river. This wasn't even close. Mushroom absolutely crushing.
Absolutely. It does use the Tornado as that little BM there to finish things off. The first one didn't manage to do it, just barely, only dealing 48 out that 50 HP, but the second one will easily clean things up. And I mean, honestly, I do think that Will was just rocked like a hurricane there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so impressed, you know, for Mushroom not just to get the win, but to get the win in such a fashion that he had Elixir left over to BM with. I mean, you know, that's a really great way to start off today's competition. I think for Will, you know, they're looking to do what Chocolate couldn't do in week 2, which is to start up a run, start up a legacy of tournaments one, and make sure we do make that final cut that they are way ahead of the pack.
Absolutely. I don't think Will is unlikely to make that final playoffs anyway. I think he's a very strong player, but Mushroom really has been stepping up their game, and some great reads on what decks would be coming out here. I think just really solid play.
And let's take a look back at those games there. I mean, oh boy, as you said, you know, there was the beginnings of attack building up for Will there, but I think they just fell too far behind to really trade anything.
They really did, and you can see here, 2 HP. It's just waiting for that chance. You can see the lightning storm come down onto the King Tower, just waiting for that elixir right now. And Mushroom just has lots of ways to respond to this situation. I'm really shocked by just how impressive and how strong that Electro Giant is.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we've ever really seen it come through and be that effective. Because it's a huge investment of resources, but I think maybe it was just missing out on the whole, as we saw, the Inferno Dragon didn't work against it at all because it was getting reset constantly. So if you send in the wrong counter, you're going to get punished for it.
And normally that Inferno Dragon is a fantastic way to deal with some of those higher health enemies. But as you said, because I believe Will had that as their prep, as their way to deal with high health enemies, they didn't have much else in the way of answers, and it just wailed on that tower.
So we're going to be moving on to our second game, Ivanovic versus Chocoholic. So Chocoholic, though they didn't win last time around, is still a current top scoring player. They've got every opportunity to keep themselves up there if they can perform well again today.
Yeah, and I definitely have been very impressed with their performance, especially as they stepped up here in the spring. They've looked great. They really have. And I think part of this is the ban meta does suit them. As they kind of said, they have a lot of flexibility. I'm not shocked to see them succeeding so well. But speaking of those bans, we have got them on in, and I think Ivanovic making a really good call here and taking the poison away from Chocoholic, while Chocoholic taking away that furnace that has been known to gum people up a little bit.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice. Presumably this has got to be that Chocoholic is scouted out Ivanovic very specifically, because it's not a choice we've seen from a ton of other players. But yeah, just having those cavalcade, the tide of those fire spirits coming through, they are going to chip away, even if they haven't got anything else helping them.
They really are. And it's also really nice to make trades way more effective for you. Keep in mind that it's only like 3 elixir, if I remember correctly, and just really does make those trades, especially against some of those like more massed units, really, really difficult. And it helps as well in distracting away, pulls a lot of aggro. It's just such a nice thing to have, because otherwise you have to invest a lot more usually for these buildings.
It's worth bearing in mind for any of our first-time viewers to be aware that our players can absolutely change their decks up entirely. So, it's a big commitment to make it, to say, this is the one card I want banned away. You have to consider it important enough. But let's get into our second game of the upper bracket. Let's see if Chocoholic, again, our top current scorer, can maintain their strong record.
Starts off with the Tesla Tower. I actually really like this from Ivanovic. It does belie we could see some sort of expo comp here, but not a lot of committal from either of these players early on.
A lot of electricity on the field. The Tesla should deal pretty well with the opening scouting party from Chocoholic, as Skeleton Giant is going to be able to gum up these bridges pretty darn well.
Indeed, and adding more to the mix. But this is a Royal Giant comp from Chocoholic here. You need to be ever so careful. Have a lot of ways to answer this Royal Giant. And I love that they were bringing out this cage to try and deal with things, as they know they don't have the furnace there. Royal Recruits should be a great way to put a lot of pressure onto this Royal Giant, as much as it is trading a lot of damage back. That's now 5 Royal Recruits pushing this one direction.
Now we're going to see the battle of the Sparkies as the flying machine takes to the skies. Ivanovic don't actually see any damage getting through here. So Hunter will perform fantastic clearing duties. So far, Chocoholic's pretty far ahead. That Royal Giant was doing work.
Yeah, it was a really great, really early all-in there from Chocoholic, investing 12 elixir within the first half a minute, honestly. I really liked that they were happy to go in all in on that, and they got a lot of damage off of it. I believe they got like 900-ish damage, and it's obviously a great way to start.
Yeah, I really like the Giant Skeleton combined with the Royal Giant. Because normally we're seeing the Giant Skeleton get distracted by lots of things, and that's what did happen there. But the Royal Giant maintains its focus on the buildings. It did take down the Goblin Cage pretty quickly, and then turned its attentions right onto the tower.
Yeah, it doesn't care about those little itty-bitty problems like the Goblin from the cage. See a lot of being invested on this right-hand side now. The Sparkies to back things up. A good volley. by some time, but there's the Royal Giant finally comes on through. A good log to try and dispatch it, keep it at bay, and then instantly those Royal recruits again. Chocoholic has 10 elixir, however, keep that in mind. This could be a really easy way for them to trade things right on back. Royal Hogs invest.
Yeah, they will pay more attention to the buildings just like the Royal Giant. So that's the first significant trade for Ivanovic here. They haven't brought things back to parity, but at least they finally got a solid hit in.
This is a massive advantage for Chocoholic here. So much damage coming through. The Earthquake as well.
Ooh.
This is easily going to be that right-hand tower going down. I have no doubt about it, but the cage might just stop it. I might just eat my words. Now the Royal Giant steps on forwards, lets loose his cannon. Just one more hit will do it. Doesn't quite get it off. But with another Earthquake in the bank, Chocoholic knows that they have only so much time before they're just going to win this outright.
Yeah, we go. The power of the Earthquake. Fire and forget in overtime. Chocoholic takes the first game. Ivanovic, some bright moments in there, but I think Chocoholic pretty comfortable in their first win.
And that's just kind of showing the class that you often see with this Royal Giant deck. It's a very strong deck, you know how to pilot, and sometimes you just drop down that Royal Giant, focuses, you win it because the opponent is investing so much to deal with it that if you have something strong behind it that deals a lot of damage, they just absolutely go to town on those units, and then you have such a great counter push afterwards. Chocoholic was constantly elixir up.
Yeah, and I was as well for Ivanovic's deck. I was thinking about this just before the Earthquake came down. You know, they've got the double buildings there, so if they end up playing into the Earthquake, that's a disaster for them. For Chocoholic, they don't seem like they need to change up a ton, but we know that they are capable of playing very different kinds of decks. Right now, though, it seemed like perhaps both of our players may well be sticking to the same style.
There might be. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. At least for Chocoholic here. I'm surprised to see Ivanovic doing something at least somewhat similar. The Tesla Tower and the Electro Wizard. Interesting.
Okay.
Oh, okay, something different here as they're bringing out the Witch, which was buffed recently, but still a lot of players don't feel like it's the strongest of answers.
I mean, it does certainly give you a lot of, you know, versatility here. We've got the Skeletons there for taking down big units. We've got the Witch herself for the AOE. So, certainly one of my preferred units when I was starting out in Clash Royale, but definitely do acknowledge it's definitely not a common sight either.
We're seeing a lot more of the lightning in a bottle here. I'm really glad to see it come on through. Those bigger spells are always fun to see land and get a lot of value, but I'm really shocked to see it. Lumberjack will likely go down before it's going to... Oh no, it's going to be in the perfect position. And look at that balloon go. You have to be so careful here. And just about does stop the second hit, but that's still a huge chunk, and Ivanovic has control right now.
Yeah, this is fantastic for them. Chocoholic could be in major trouble here. They've got something different than they expected. The Earthquake did stay in on the assumption there would be more buildings to go for, but the Skeleton Giant will buy time for the Hunter to stay alive and get a solid few shots off while the Royal Giant charges up the left-hand
Oh my
side.
god, that's going to be the tower! So much damage from that drop-on-death bomb there. Brilliantly done by Chocoholic, and you could see Ivanovic was trying to keep it off with that Tesla Tower, but it just wasn't enough, and instead it was wasted elixir as they now find themselves on the back foot. As that, oh my god, that Royal Giant continues to find so much value.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Lightning is doing what it can, but Ivanovic in major trouble here. We thought they'd managed it, but now we're getting Royal Giants dropped onto Ivanovic's side of the field. The University of Warwick student is in major trouble. The Earthquake doing triple duty to open the way, as I think we might even be looking at a 3-crown game.
I don't think they quite have it in them, especially with this push coming on in, but it's definitely a win here for Chocoholic. Maybe you can pick up another tower if you find some kind of opening here, Ivanovic, but not like that, not just solo investing that balloon. And with this push coming on in, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it will be a quick, clean game, but so much damage. It's actually kind of crazy. This Royal Giant continually finding value for Chocoholic.
Oh my gosh. Well, there we go, the 2-0. It looked like a mid-game that was actually going to turn around, but yeah, the answers just weren't quite there for Ivanovic. Still got a lot more to learn. I mean, you know, to be fair here, against Chocoholic, who's got a tremendous amount of experience playing in these tournaments specifically, it's always going to be a tough ask. And particularly when you don't even know what you're going to be up against.
Yeah, and I mean, they played a very similar deck again. I was very surprised to see Chocoholic just go, I'm going to stick to my guns and absolutely rock and roll it out. Ivanovic just wasn't ready for it and believed that there would be the swap too. I think that's why they stick to a pretty similar game plan. They had a couple of ways to try and deal with the Royal Giant by having a couple of buildings, but it felt like it wasn't enough. There's way too much damage coming out.
And if I remember correctly, the Tesla is still affected by the earthquake when it's underground, so it's hard to set a defensive line up against someone who's running that. And I'm kind of surprised that Chocoholic left it in the first place because of how devastating it was in Game 1. It was a solid assumption that Ivanovic would have swapped out their buildings for Game 2.
It's a hard call. Sometimes you got to make a read that your opponent will change up their composition and not include maybe that earthquake. Like you were saying, that Chocoholic probably should have taken out if Ivanovic was going to swap away from those buildings. But Ivanovic also sticks to their guns and means that Chocoholic gets that proper good read. And maybe this is again because, as you kind of talked about earlier, that Chocoholic has done their research and knows Ivanovic likes to stick with what they've got.
So coming up next, as I believe we'll get a chance to talked down to them because they're already seeing themselves very much as a fourth place player rather than the first place player they are this season.
Yeah, I'm so glad to see this absolute glow up. And I mean, they're going up against the person who took them down in the previous week and was always the thorn in their side last season. Looking for a little bit more closure this time. Chocoholic versus Mushroom in these upper bracket finals. Who do you have it for, Counterfeit?
It's tough. I mean, when we're seeing the rematch of the finals from before, then, you've got to favour Mushroom here at least a little bit. I think Chocoholic, after being denied the chance of winning 2 tournaments in a row, after their strongest performance ever, I think they'll have put the time in here. So I'm prepared to be surprised by Chocoholic. But I think just on what we've seen so far, Mushroom, I think, is going to edge very slightly into the winner's column.
I mean, they have looked very strong today. I've been very impressed with what they were able to do to Will and with some really great meta calls. But I think Chocoholic is a little bit more finicky than that and a little bit more difficult to pin down. So I do think that, if you ask me, I'm on the other side of you. I think Chocoholic takes it. I do think they do.
All right, well, let us know in the chat, guys, because this is our upper bracket final. Whoever wins out this best of 3 goes right to the finals after this game, which means they don't have to play again until the finals start, and they also get a bonus win, as it's going to be a heavy drop in. We've got the minus from Mushroom, which has worked very well for them so far, but we're seeing a relatively solid reply from Chocoholic.
Minor chip, a strategy pretty much as old as time. So great to see it come through here from Mushroom, and if they can find a lot of value with it, that would be fan-dabby-dozy. Unfortunately, these Royal Hogs, I mean, they're doing a lot worse than I thought they would into that Inferno Tower. Normally, I'd assume that Inferno Tower would really struggle to deal with a group of 4 like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's our value of splitting up your units into multiple things, is that those single target removals, they aren't going to work anywhere near as well, but I think without the backup from the rest of the squad, it's going to be tricky. The mana drops through again. We have got Electro Spirit, so that would reset the tower if it's brought along with the Hogs next time.
Would be a great way to do things. And I know Chocoholic definitely is prepared to play like that. But investing these spells early, we've seen just how valuable these 2-for-1s can be. So always keep them in mind whenever you see these players taking some of these bigger spells.
What we are seeing from both of them is they're both chucking spells at each other's towers, knowing that every bit of damage is going to count. We've got the miner going through, the Royal recruits coming from Chocoholic. So as we noted in the previous games, the recruits, while they've got that shield to shrug off the initial damage, their single target damage isn't amazing, especially for some of these bigger units.
There are so many units coming out here with those Royal recruits. They're just going to put so much pressure on. A split push from Chocoholic, and with a good fireball, maybe they can find a lot of damage. But unfortunately, you see that Electro Wizard finding so much value. But I mean, if you're Chocoholic here, you're fine with this push. You've got a lot of damage on the left-hand tower, and it's setting up to really put Mushroom in the situation where they're going to have to make a call at some point. And they're already putting themselves in the position where they're going to look for this push.
So Poison will strip away the recruit shields, but not too much more. Still getting damage through. So for Chocoholic, these recruits working incredibly well for the split pushing style. The Inferno Tower is down once again, which will chew through a lot. Looks like the fireball's just about enough AoE to hit both the tower and it. As they're coming close to the end of regular time, it's a full commit in. With the Hogs, the tower goes down. The Hogs are going to get through. Logs will keep them at bay for just a second, but they're chewing away on the left-hand tower. Mushroom's in major trouble.
Yeah, low already on both of those towers. Again, Chocoholic splitting the difference there, making Mushroom pay for the committal towards that left-hand tower. So keeping things very nice, even nice and honest. And just one push in either direction really could end it. The Poison continually invested into the left-hand side could prove their doom if we see a big investment towards this right-hand tower quickly and succinctly from Chocoholic.
Flying Machine has got a couple of good hits in, but even with these towers being as low as they are, it only needs to be one of Chocoholic's towers that falls here in overtime. Even if both of Mushroom's towers are on a single health point, it's only the first tower to fall.
Again, 4 towards the left-hand side of these Royal recruits, ready to really put that pressure on. A great miner to not only find the damage, but also distract these Royal recruits. Again, trying to gum up that push on the right-hand side with as much and as efficiently as possible. You can see the Royal Hogs just going straight for it with that. Oh! One more hit could have potentially done it here, but I don't think it's going to quite be enough. They have to save up for that one more spell. They need to delay as the push is already coming in with that miner.
Look at the Poison ticking away, but Mushroom, you can see they're desperate to get a last bit in, but there's the fireball, and there's the game for Chocoholic. That's going to feel pretty darn good against Mushroom, who took them out last week in the finals.
And honestly, I thought it was going to be Chocoholic looking for that push on the right-hand side that was going to do it, but Mushroom just not managing to effectively deal with those pushes well when they're being pressured on so many different angles meant that eventually Mushroom just went, all right, we'll just go with the left where we really started with, and Mushroom just didn't have anywhere near enough answers. That miner chip is a little bit slow at times and not able to take those towers if there's a adequate response.
No, you're right, you need to get cycling around to that miner again and again and again, getting a little bit of damage in, but I think in this case, Chocoholic just outpaced Mushroom in that game, and you can see from how more and more desperate Mushroom was getting as it went along, they were trying to find a place where the miner wouldn't be answered immediately, but most of the time, not only was the miner getting dealt with, it was actually getting, its aggro redirected, it was being intercepted by recruits, it was being taken by something else, and it wasn't even getting any damage in at all.
Yeah, constantly dragging these units across as well. It's really solid placement that makes the difference. And I want to point out that Mushroom was doing some really good stuff as well, trying to catch with the Poison, trying to deny those Royal recruits. If it wasn't for effective usage of spells there, Mushroom would have lost minutes ago. That's the really big difference here, is able to keep it close, even when I do think it is a composition mismatch like that.
Alright, so first blood in this round will fall to Mushroom. They're bringing in something a little bit different. That Princess, maximum range. It's going to be a tide of goblins as Nicey the Tornado activates the King Tower, and that's going to make life a lot harder for Mushroom.
Oh, it really is. Chocoholic really needs to be... Sorry, Mushroom really needs to be more careful about that. They know that Chocoholic loves to use these tornadoes, and you can see they're already feeling a little bit sad about that one, a little bit breezy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real kicker when you suddenly realize you've made a misstep at the very beginning of the round, but Chocoholic read ahead of the script here against Mushroom. And, you know, while they won't be able to get through with a charge here against these tide of smaller units, they have at least got a solid defense now. So you'll see, even if those goblins weren't cleaned up immediately, the king is there to add their firepower to the princess.
Sometimes giving out a helping hand when you manage to wake him up, but none of that king is a little bit lazy. I love that Mushroom is bringing out Logbait here. It's a deck that is actually very different from some of the more committal decks we've seen from them so far. Generally trying to play for that chip damage and also play with these very, very cheap tools.
Yeah, I mean, they've used these cheap tools to great effectiveness, have they, so far with Mushroom. We've yet to see from Chocoholic what they're going to do, what their win condition is here. Because they've got their first bit of damage in. So Goblins coming in again, there's the king. The rockets being ridden right into the tower. Mushroom, now they have shown us their win condition. Chocoholic needs to respond quickly.
This is a weird variant, but I love to see this kind of variation coming from a Mushroom here. But speaking of weird, here's the Electro Giant. This time coming out from Chocoholic themselves.
Alright, this is a big investment, but there's a ton of work this Electro Giant needs to do, because there's nearly no damage done to Mushroom's right-hand tower, whereas Chocoholic is almost taken down entirely. Remember, in last week's finals, Chocoholic did win the first game, as the rocket will deal pretty well with what's there, but the zaps from the Electro Giant are clearing the way for the Prince to go charging in. We've got the Tornado to bring everyone back in, get rid of the Princess, but again, nothing's getting through from Chocoholic.
Yeah, they tried to get that Knight on through to find some damage, but that Goblin gang is just too much. They've got to be very careful on this right-hand side. They know I think 2 more rockets will just about do it there. So they've got to be very careful. Obviously, it's a big invest from Mushroom, and if they overextend, well, we could easily see this game flip very quickly towards that other side. The Electro Giant getting chunked out quite a lot here, though.
It is a good answer to these small units because of all the zapping it's doing, but it's not proving to be tanky enough to deny the sheer amount of damage going on. Nice little Tornado there to bring the Princess back in. The Mushroom flooding their side of the board with cheap and effective units. You see, Chocoholic here just doesn't feel like they've got a good matchup against the situation. They will be able to keep the walls from the door, but not the rockets from the sky.
It's so impossible. It's impossible to stop it, pretty much. Especially if your opponent is dead set on just going for that straight up damage. They can 2 for 1 this as well. He take out the baby dragon, and it is just a scratch to take it down here. I don't even know. I don't think Log will quite do it, but this Goblin Barrel just might, especially with Log backup. Does in fact touch of death it there. Mushroom takes game 2, and we have a series on our hands.
And then particularly given, you know, how that one started out with the king getting activated, you see the Mushroom was really thinking that this was going to go poorly for them and they might even get 2-0'd. But ultimately, I think it was a deck problem for Chocoholic there. We haven't seen the Princess doing particularly well so far today. Doesn't feel like the style which, you know, it fits very well into the style that a lot of the people are playing.
It feels a little bit too committal, and I really don't like it, especially running both of them, and they're so very easily countered. I think sometimes you can get away with it if your opponent doesn't have a lot of electric units of any sort, but I think pretty much everyone we've seen today has had at least one, at least maybe 2 even, in pretty much every deck we've seen.
I think at this point, you know, it's not that big of a commitment to make sure you've got that as part of your lineup. It's not like you're...
Solid units individually.
Yeah, you're never going to be like, oh, darn, I wish I hadn't played this unit. It's always going to be good. But we'll see what comes in game number 3, the decider between Mushroom and Chocoholic. One of these two going to the finals after this game. The other one down to the lower bracket where they'll have to fight back once again to get another chance at winning today's competition.
Starting off with a mirror composition here, but... instantly Chocoholic showing flashes of their individuality. Okay, apparently not. Apparently Mushroom is going tit for tat here.
Okay. Great minds think alike, apparently. Zappies for everyone. Giant skeletons all over the place. So this is going to mean that not too much is done. Nice use of the Fisherman, though, will bring the giant out of the way. But no, they want to play with each other. Oh my gosh. They are going blow for blow. Exactly the same. Finally, they will divert. We don't know if the decks are exactly the same, but we are seeing a lot to like from both sides.
I imagine they are almost identical here. It's just the luck of the draw, which has led to this Royal Giant coming out that little bit earlier and making a huge difference here. Note on Mushroom winning out that trade with the Skeleton Giants and that mirror opening, because they invested later, and that meant that the opposing Skeleton Giant was on their side of the board. Got a lot of damage off their Princess Tower there, and, well, that meant that they were able to really push through this middle with the Royal Giant and find a lot of damage off that right-hand tower.
I mean, this reminds me of, what we don't tend to see so much anymore is people waiting out a long time for, to make sure they do get the counter punches in, as it will be Giant Skeleton versus Giant Skeleton once again on the bridge, clobbering each other. But this time, the Fisherman will bring it across for the Hunter. Chocoholic, I think it's going to take a lot of damage. I think I'm just about get the Giant Skeleton to survive. And there's a double Giant. We saw how powerful this is before.
Yeah, but getting distracted means that Royal Giant is going to be right at the front and being stopped so much. A good Earthquake here to try and maybe get some benefit out, but it's ever so difficult. The final card being an Earthquake, will that be enough to turn the tide? This Mushroom is still very much in control here.
Good amount of damage on the right-hand side. 1852 against 1772 of Chocoholic, and there's a decent chance that no more damage comes through for a while, because, with the decks being very similar, there's very few chances to get the damage through. Another double Giants coming in. They're going to be locked in place, though. The Hunter and all the Sparkies providing tons of crowd control. This is a good, decent hit in, but the counter punch is coming.
Yeah, you've got to be so careful about this. You know that a Royal Giant is coming right back. A good Barb Barrel to maybe find some damage here, and with the Fisherman finding a lot of value, that could have been enough, but it's the return Earthquake. With the Skeleton Giant leading the way, it's not quite going to get hit on that tower, but it's going to get a hell of a lot. It's held in place. That bomb is going to chunk out the opposing side. And now Mushroom has a lot of elixir to respond.
Oh boy, Skeleton Giant will be pulled in. At least the bomb will provide some value there, as the Fishermen are being used to divide up the attack. It's now the double Giant.
The Earthquake.
Mushroom. Yeah, the Earthquake is coming. But the Royal Giant, both Giants actually going down real quick because of that Hunter point blanking.
Yeah, if there's an Earthquake that comes through here from Chocoholic, I don't think that quite finishes. They did change how much damage Earthquake does to Princess Towers, and that's something to keep in mind here. If this was old, that would have been it, but the Fisherman blunders there, and hook, line, and sinker. Chocoholic takes the game as Mushroom makes a fatal mistake.
Oh boy, expecting the Skeleton Giant ended up with the Royal Giant. That's unfortunate. I think at that point you're right, though. It was pretty much a done deal. Even if all the Giants neutralized each other, eventually the Earthquake was going to tell. But, oh boy, so that means Chocoholic, improving on the performance from last week's round, will make it through in first place, just as they did in week number 1, taking down the person who beat them last week as well. I think this could be Chocoholic's week again.
Told you, man. I told you, man. He's absolutely awesome. He's been kicking ass so far this season, and while Mushroom, as much as they have been very consistent and great in both of these seasons so far, they don't seem to be quite up to snuff to, I think, take him down this week. I think Mushroom is on a bit of a hot streak.
Well, let's take a look back at those games and see exactly what it was that was working so well. In this first game, the Hogs, they did a fantastic job, and I think this was the one where we really saw, the spells being used as well for double and triple value multiple times.
Yeah, it was a lot of damage from this poison over the course of the game, but it wasn't quite enough with that miner, especially with the Sparkies constantly ready to try and intercept, and just gave Chocoholic that time to be able to win out the game. And so much pressure provided by Chocoholic in that match.
I mean, in the second game as well, I think the Rocket here was the real big surprise. And, if we're talking about chucking spells at each other's Princess Towers, you can't do too much better than the Rocket.
You really can't. It traded so well, and with the Goblin Barrel and with the Log, it was just clean pickings there for Mushroom to find it over the top with the constant pressure throughout the game. And this started off so well for Mushroom. They got a lot of damage on in early, a lot of pressure. They came out on top in those early trades, but a couple of blunders, and, well, you see the late game, it all falls apart.
And I think this one is going to live in infamy, pulling the Royal Giant in. I mean, it's always about being polite, isn't it? Welcome someone to your home, have them knock over all of your stuff and take the win. Oh boy, so Mushroom now has to do what Chocolate did last week, which is fight back through the lower bracket, which means we may not even see Mushroom again.
Yeah, it could be really difficult. Mushroom still has a lot of stack players to try and take down. So obviously got to keep an eye out for that one. I'm very excited to see whether he'll be able to make it back to those finals and get that reverse sweep.
So guys, we will be going to a short break before we head into the second half of our tournament here today. Again, a big thank you out to Unite Students, Logitech G, and Twitch Student, without who this tournament would not be possible. So please do show them some love. You can find out some details below our broadcast. We'll be back in around 8 minutes' time with our lower bracket, and we shall find out who shall join Chocoholic in the finals.
My shadows, they follow you like an accomplice. Lost all of your dreams, the night is heartless. My shadows, they follow you. My shadows, they follow you in the darkness. My shadows, they follow you like an accomplice. Lost all of your dreams, the night is heartless. My shadows, they follow you. My shadows, they follow you in the darkness. In the darkness.
Welcome back, everyone, to the New, the home of University Esports, and to the second half of the Amazon University Esports Clash Royale competition. For today, we've already got ourselves our first finalist with Chocoholic. Now, Ivanovic, we saw them before, now we're going to get to see them again, this time up against Will, and Rook. Will got in contact in the break saying, they're done playing around. From here on out, this is full power, full serious mode, Will.
I'm glad to hear it, but I'm kind of sorry for Ivanovic. Ivanovic, not as prevalent as some of the other players left in this tournament, but I mean, definitely did have a decent showing in some of the early games against Chocoholic, who is obviously already in the finals. So we saw some glimpses of hope here, and we're going to need to see them burn bright if they're going to be able to take down Will, however.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about Chocoholic, they were in the same position Ivanovic is here, up against players who are consistently handing out the losses to them, but they've grown over time. So hopefully that will be the case for Ivanovic here. We'll see how much they can grow in the context of this competition, because, of course, when we saw them for the first time, we didn't know that they were up against, up against the person who was going to be going straight to the finals.
Yeah, obviously, we didn't, but Ivanovic probably had an inkling after quite how those interactions went. Chocoholic had some really great stuff on display and managed to hand it to them. Will getting taken 2-0 out by Mushroom as well. So an interesting situation to find ourselves in. I did think that Will Mushroom was going to be that little bit closer. I think Will, that's why he's a little bit mad. That's why he's going full pelt here. He does not want to find himself going out quite this early.
Alright, so from Ivanovic, they banned out the poison. For Will, they banned out the Tesla they didn't see coming through before. And Ivanovic going to bring out one of the units we normally see banned against Will, that Lava Hound in disguise.
It's a good investment, and also the Furnace as well. We know it's a great unit to try and gunk things up, but Goblin Giant pushing on the right here with P.E.K.K.A backup. This is an interesting strategy, and a lot of damage going on to them. You have to be careful, though. Look towards this left-hand tower. As much as you found a lot of damage, eventually that Lava Hound will wreak havoc.
Yeah, you can see the Will just completely ignored the relatively low damage of the Lava Hound's initial form. The Lava Pups, though, if they're not dealt with, they can do a bit of hurting. I think there will be some trade back damage, but it's not what Ivanovic would have wanted, for the right-hand tower is already pretty low.
A 3 elixir disadvantage, however, for Will here. They've got to be careful on this next trade. They need to have a big response to this balloon. They're Rage Potion P.E.K.K.A just pushing on out. But the Furnace will tank up a lot of that damage. For P.E.K.K.A, if he can get one hit on in here, but the log just about denies it. And Will gets caught off guard by that balloon on the left-hand flank.
That was a big commit in from Will, and it cost them. You can see, if this is serious Will, then they are in serious trouble. What the heck? What is going on here? This is not what we expected. But alright, let's try something a little bit different. Let's put out maximum firepower instead.
The dark technologies out here for Will. Will it be enough to allow them to pick up this right-hand tower and keep themselves in this game over the next minute?
So they are going to hit like a truck here. But Sparky's coming in. It will make it pretty hard to get that shot off with the long charge-up time. The Goblin Giant, I think, has been the big impressive change here. But the Knights coming through again. Maybe this will be the game where they get to show up.
A little bit of patricide there coming out from these electro constructs, meaning that, well, that makes it really difficult for it to find basically anything. And that's a coincidental situation as well. It's not like you're playing those just to try and deny the damage.
So we've got another Hound up in the skies. Sparky's going to be able to pour out a ton of damage as the Giant will get distracted. Sparky's still up, though. They're going to be able to one-shot pretty much everything. They will get distracted, but immediately taking out one more shot's going to do it. And it's here. That evens up the numbers.
Just about keeps themselves in and is on a warpath towards this King Tower now. Investing a lot. If they trade well with this Baby Dragon, maybe you just go straight on in this.
So we still have Ivanovic with the advantage as we see another Sparky drop down. Will be escorted up by the Goblin Giant. Of course, with the two Goblins in the pack, we'll be able to deal with some of these smaller units coming through. The log won't do too much of anything, just cycling out for Ivanovic. As the Furnace comes down, you're going to be seeing Rage drop just to try and shorten the travel time for Will's army. They're going for the kill.
Yeah, they will be able to dispatch that Valkyrie, but you can see still gummed up in the mid-ground. If he had managed to hit, that would have been fantastic, but I think Will's still happy with this situation. Only 450 health left on this King Tower, just marching towards the Goblin Giant. Looks like it wants to finish it off. And those Goblins, even though the Giant was aiming for the Furnace, they kept it on that King Tower with a one-track mind.
Yeah, Will from Bournemouth University turns what looked to be an almost guaranteed loss there into a win. And I don't think Ivanovic or us were expecting to actually see the King Tower go down, of all things.
No, that was so aggressive from Will there, and absolutely fantastically done to try and trade things back. Overstepped their boundaries, to be fair, a little bit in the early game, but managed to make the comeback. Ivanovic, I have to applaud them for being able to see that opening, drop down that balloon, and just go for it.
It takes a lot of nerves, as we've seen before, to make that big commit in, as we're in now to game number 2. The bowler coming out from Will should give them very, very good ground control, able to swipe away Cloud's units and give them a pretty good ranged option on the ground as well.
Yeah, Valkyrie already trying to put a stop to it, but not finding all the attacks that they would necessarily want. This Baby Dragon is going to finish things off here, but the Valkyrie we've seen a lot more in recent weeks, and to great effect as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's great value unit, just like the Knight. Tremendous tankiness for what you're paying for it. A lot of the times, what you need is just that tank. And speaking of tanks, Mega Knights on the field and ready to dish out the pain.
Absolute chonker coming on through here and slamming down on that left-hand tower. The Inferno Dragon will dispatch it eventually. That is an eventually. Keep that in mind. This Witch, Ivanovic bringing out the second time today.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily see amazing things from it before, but it will answer relatively well into the Inferno Dragon here because of having the skeletons be able to distract the aggro until the Witch gets the job done.
Yeah, it's so difficult for that Inferno Dragon to deal with the Witch effectively. This bowler, however, has no such problems.
Yeah, I mean, that's just fantastic. Keep pushing the Witch back, taking care of all the skeletons at the same time. For Ivanovic, they're going to have to use something else as the balloon comes out from Will on the right-hand side. This is exactly what Ivanovic did before, but this time there is an answer, and while the balloon, I think, falls just so slightly short.
Yeah, good usage there. A tornado to bring express delivery and also activate that King Tower. Great stuff done there from Will to be able to activate that one. And this Hog Rider, it's going to find a little bit of damage, but nowhere near enough. Interesting to see these Lumberjacks invested so willy-nilly from Will here.
Yeah, and there's no one to benefit from that rage. I mean, as we check in on the game overall, Will is pretty far behind here, down to 1160 on the left-hand side. While they've had some very, very strong trades, they haven't resulted in nearly any damage at all.
Yeah, maybe investing a little bit too much into this aerial threat. You're going to see that Witch try to deal with it, but as I said, they overinvested. I think it's Ivanovic who might have done that. If this Inferno and Baby Dragons can find that opening, this could be huge here, especially because they're going to be able to rid themselves of a lot of these ground threats here. The Electro Wizard might be enough to stop it, though, as that Inferno Dragon just finds absolutely zilch.
And I thought the freeze coming in from Will as well, a really nice choice there. That would be enough, but the Tornado pulls back the Rider. I think, just falling short. Though, once it's all said and done, again, Will is getting these big trades, but they're not getting the damage through. They're still really far behind as we head into overtime. I think that Furnace as well, it's proven extremely effective at keeping the balloon from getting value.
Indeed, it has brilliant stuff, and that's why we saw it banned away by Chocoholic. As I said before, it gums things up. Something awful here. As those spawners can be ever so problematic. The Tornado finally helps finish things off, and again, this push. If that Lumberjack goes down in the right position, that could be great, but it looks like they might be a little bit hard-pressed for that one. The Mega Knight doing such a good job at keeping things at bay. Oh my god, it's still raged up! It's gonna find one more hit. No, nothing! As that Electro Wizard denies absolutely everything they put on in there, but with Inferno Dragon getting ready to hit on this tower, Will steals away another game from Ivanovic, even with that early game lead.
What a disappointment for our University of Warwick student there. They looked like, again, that they had it. They had Will on the ropes, but ultimately all it took was that one attack to go right. I think just getting into that extra elixir time meant that it just really pushed Will's comp over the edge. They just had too much to deal with. The answers weren't there, and for Ivanovic, it's going to be a tale of what could have been. Will stay alive on the lower bracket, and apparently this is our serious face Will.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I didn't expect it after seeing the kind of units that he's bringing out in Game 1 and also in Game 2. It was a little bit, huh? But it made it work. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And now is obviously progressing on to take on their arch-old nemesis, an age-old friend, Mushroom.
Yeah, I mean, this is a battle we've been very privileged to see multiple times. But let's take a look back at the game. I mean, this charge up to the King Tower, this Ivanovic basically had the game up until the point where the King Tower was exploded.
And it all felt like such a good opportunity for them, but Will just hard committed. And it was a really aggressive push with these lumberjacks, with these rage potions that allowed them to find those openings and punish Ivanovic for giving any chance over to such a veteran player.
I think that's the danger when you're up against an opponent who has got that rage, especially combined with the freeze there. You've got all of your power concentrated in just a few moments, and freeze, it gives you those few moments while also removing nearly all of your opponent's ways to actually respond as well.
Indeed, it does, and I think Will playing this very opportunistic style is a really great look for them. I don't know if it's necessarily going to work against some of our more seasoned players, but I think looking for those opportunities, really reading when your opponent overextends, that's always been a big strength of theirs.
So we have got notice about the bans for this Mushroom Will game. It's going to be all air bans. So Will banning out the balloon, Mushroom banning out lava. So presumably we're going to be keeping our feet on the ground for this best of 3.
Indeed we will be. Maybe we see something like the baby dragons and the Inferno dragons. We have seen a couple of those here and there, but for the most part, I do expect us to be having a more grounded focus. But I think this is really interesting here. So Mushroom banned away balloon, correct?
Yes, that's...
Yeah.
No, sorry, Mushroom banning away the lava hand, my apologies. Will banning away the balloon.
Okay, alright. So Will banning away the balloon actually really surprises me here. I actually think maybe banning away the lava hound from Mushroom makes a lot of sense, but Will heavily utilized it in that very last game. There's a lot of damage potential there, and if he wants to try and catch players off guard, the balloon coupled along with a rage potion or the lumberjack is not a bad shout.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if Will's, like you said, is going to try and approach the game differently now they're going up against the person who knows them the best, Mushroom. Maybe they just think that, if this is the strategy that they've been practicing, there's a decent chance they've been practicing the strategy together.
It's really true, and I think that's why Will sometimes has problems against Mushroom. I think Will is very experienced against the rest of the kind of roster that we have here in terms of our matchups. But Mushroom, because of that experience against them, just seems to have that upper hand. And it's a little bit sad to see, because I think Will often deserves higher placings than they get, but just by pure virtue of Mushroom just gatekeeping them so many times.
Yeah, and of course we know Will, with the competitive experience, with with an incredibly solid grounding in Clash Royale, is absolutely the player that we expect to see do extremely well. And they've talked themselves up at times, and certainly they've done that in for today's tournament. I mean, serious mode Will against regular Mushroom, I guess. We don't know how focused, how intense Mushroom is right now, but even though these guys are friends with each other, we've never really seen them take it easy on each other.
No, there's a bit of banter there, but couldn't possibly let each other win. I love the kind of competitor spirit these guys have against each other, as much as it is kind of tongue-in-cheek at times.
So we'll have to look out in this game as to what Will's got. As you said, the ban's a little bit surprising here, but presumably, we have an update. So it looks like Will, I don't know if Will is tapping into the same knowledge reserves as we did, but apparently they've changed their ban from balloon to poison. So as you say, that balloon is now back on the card, but it's going to be Princess leading the charge.
It's an interesting decision here. Doesn't really get all too much damage in. But again, playing this logbait deck is you can play around with a lot of these commitments because you don't have very high Alexa costs.
I like to see the cannon cart coming through here. Great flexibility, and Will, of course, one of the big proponents of the wall breakers, will take a negative elixir trade there as they tornado away. that potential damage. But hey, even if you do go negative, it keeps you from taking any damage early on. Will is ever so slightly ahead, and when we've seen these two play before, every point counts.
It really does. I love the usage of this princess at long range. It's going to harass this Valkyrie as well. A great amount of value to find, but stellar Ice Wizard placement here from Mushroom to be able to get that one back.
A nice use of the wall breakers.
It doesn't find anything though.
They were at least able to kite away the Valkyrie, so for anyone who goes unaware. Ooh, hello, so the king gets woken up. You can use these running away units to draw back your opponent. And that's what they did with the Valkyrie, pulling it away. The bowler won't be able to get through, so ultimately, Will is ahead in this first game.
Yeah, the problem is that they did activate that king tower, and that's something you've got to keep in mind as this game goes later.
So this is our lower bracket finals. We're in right now. The winner going on to face off against Chocoholic in our next game. The best of 5, of course. Chocoholic, having got the 1 game advantage, means that they are favored. And the double dragon approach here from Mushroom isn't making much progress.
It really isn't. No way to get on through there. Not enough to be able to get through the pure amount of answers that you get from this. And neither lot of wall breakers hit again. You see the barrel go on through there, but the Valkyrie is constantly ready to respond.
Yeah, that princess, as you said, getting tremendous value here, just staying in the middle where she's not going to be in peril of too much apart from a log under the most circumstances, but it doesn't seem like Mushroom is actually playing that. The tornado being used to bring back into place as the graveyard isn't any good. We've got the freeze coming through, which will allow the baby dragon to get some hits in, but it's not the game ender we've seen so many times.
I'm so impressed by the placement of this Valkyrie and the patience with it. It constantly gets rid of those goblin barrels and denies so much pressure, so much damage that Will is looking for. Basically, that Valkyrie costing like 3 elixir.
All right, another attack building up from Will here. So we've got the cannon cart and the hunter. The bowler will be able to create the knockback as well, providing space. And the baby dragon does work from the other side. The goblins, though, sneak in on the right-hand side, and it's only the activated king tower that stops more damage from getting through.
Good tornado here means you're able to get a lot of damage on in. You can see that that bowler is just about still alive, especially with that Valkyrie tanking for it here. Graveyard invested, but a good flanking hunter does at least make light of some of these units coming on in here. A good investment of the freeze might be enough as well to let them take more damage on that tower. It's only down to 700, which is a 500 advantage now for Mushroom, but with goblins coming on in, you've got to be ever so careful.
I mean, if you're willing to commit nearly your entire elixir bar, you can have that graveyard, you can have that freeze, you can cut down any non-spell answers to nothing. I think it's going to be another big push in. Tornado being used to move the cart out of the way, but the graveyard will coming in. The bandit is doing a good enough job of clearing the space. Well, Will might be in trouble here. They're not heading too closely to the end. We're getting actually near to the end of overtime.
It's that damage coming on through here with that princess. So darn much. It's not quite going to do it. It'll be the log to finish things off, and Will snipes it out from underneath their feet. Mushroom had a lot of pressure throughout that game, but it's just those big pushes where Will often decides these games.
I can't believe how much damage got through right at the end there, though, with the bandit. It's about 500 damage, and then the princess log finishing off the job. I was certain that Mushroom had that one.
I really was as well. It was really great decision making throughout the majority of that game, but just one slip up yet again. One opportunity for Will allows him to take those towers ever so quickly, and I think that's a big part of why they're playing compositions like this.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this from Will time and time again. You can be beating them every moment of the game, but the second that you slip up, the second you give Will the opportunity to sneak through, they will salvage a game that looks unsalvageable. And it's going to be the wall breakers in once again. We see, even with the tower and with the ice wizard, they still manage to sneak through damage.
They do. Miner coming out early here for Will. I mean, this could still be that log bait style. Does have wall breakers as well. Maybe trying to play that more chip opportunity. A good log to deny the charge from the Dark Prince. And Ooh, Magic Archer coming on through here.
This is a throwback to way back when this card used to rule the roost here in the Newell. Haven't seen a ton of it recently. I think it did change it around its range a few times, making it a lot less oppressive than it once was, but still very powerful under the right circumstances.
Yeah, but when it gets tornadoed in and completely chunked out, probably a little bit less so. Will still struggling to find the damage with these wall breakers, but often prompting a quick response.
We are from Mushroom seeing the Dark Prince coming through here, and you can see, while it's an AOE unit, it still does a decent amount of single target damage. The Archer, though, will answer pretty much everything eventually. Not a ton of burst damage, but as you can see, its DPS chews through everything given enough time.
Yeah, well, Magic Archer gets Barbarian barreled there. Good stuff by Mushroom to give up the sniper. That big damage dealer.
So there's the wall breakers. This time it's going to be the Goblin. Almost denying the damage, but uh-oh! This is what Mushroom was been hiding. The Electro Giant coming through with the backup from the Goblin Brute as well. We do have the Bomb Tower to deny a lot of the aggression onto the tower, but the zaps from the Giant means it's going to get through, and it's... No! Is it? Just about getting the hits in.
Yeah, good stuff there, but that's another example of the combos that Mushroom has. The Tornado is not just good for maybe activating the King Tower, for grouping units up for a spell, but it's also good for playing around that Electro Giant. So good damage from the Wall Breakers there. They're still at a loss on this right-hand side.
We have seen this Bomb Tower doing incredible work against pretty much everything. Even though it can only hit the ground, it's still a distraction for aid. It's the miner in the left-hand side. The Wall Breakers are coming, but the Goblin Cage gets in the way. There's the Tornado to line everyone up for the Magical Archer, and that's the maximum value you can look for.
Yeah, that was a big opportunity. See, the Goblin from the cage doesn't find all too much, but this Bomb Tower yet again trying to distract and pull away on that Electro Giant, but still getting gatekept by the Knight. So much damage coming through, and especially with the backup of a big spell here, that could easily be it. A clutch Tornado keeps him alive, but Will is hanging on for dear life.
They're hanging on by an absolute thread, and we know the lightning is coming, so I think this one is pretty much done here for Will. They will, of course, try and salvage it. Never count Will out, but it's going to be a hell of a task to get the damage in. Left-hand tower seems the best target, but lightning says, forget about it.
No way you could get one through that one. Too much health in the way, and Will just getting completely stopped in their tracks. Those Wall Breakers, again, finding very little value. That cage dropping on down, chanking it up, and honestly doing exactly what Mushroom wants out of it.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by that one, especially considering, how, flighty things were in the previous game against Will. I was fully expecting to see Will, since they're coming out with, their hyper-focus mode, as they're saying here, to give Mushroom a really good run for their money. I'm very curious to see, if it's all said and done by the end of it, if Will, even when they're trying the absolute hardest, can't take down Mushroom here, what that says for the rest of the competition going forward.
Yeah, I really do think that Will is trying to play to maybe the most optimal conditions where you can find a lot of damage with that Wall Breaker, and it's just not happening so far today. A lot of people are expecting it out of him, and they've prepped for it. So many buildings that are going to be able to get in the way and are relatively cheap and generally want to be found in that situation. That's why you see so much success come from good cage usage. But Will, starting off with a pretty default composition. I love these units. They are workhorses, and if Will has a big solid game plan around it, well, we're going to find ourselves in a great spot here. This Bomb Tower is great as well at stopping this cannon cart from finding quite the amount of value that it otherwise would.
That's a huge early commit though from Mushroom on the left hand side. It paid off, even with the Bomb Tower, even with a cannon cart. They still weren't able to stop all the damage there from the graveyard, so Mushroom starts out this one hugely far ahead.
Yeah, I was surprised to see quite that much damage coming through. They had the Knight there and everything, and still a big opportunity for Mushroom, but we've seen Will at disadvantages like this. Can he claim a comeback, as Mushroom has already set him on the back foot?
So Fireball being used for maximum value there, hitting multiple targets, and it's a graveyard of Will's own. We'll see how much damage this one's able to do. The Mega Minion and the Archers are there, which should get rid of most of the Skeletons before they get their big hits in.
Completely denies them from one of those opportunities, and now Will be very careful himself. Just a single push could spell doom for him if he's really not careful.
And remember, whoever wins this game is going right on to the finals. We shall take no break. We shall go straight there because Chocoholic has been waiting to find out who they will be facing in the best of 5 action. And it's looking like it's going to be Cannon Carts meeting each other. But it's the Mega Minion in the sky. It's a nice trade off. Both those cannons will end up dropping down, and Will has the advantage as they push in.
Yeah, good fireball yet again here means that Mushroom is able to deny a lot of that damage, and it's yet again the archers and that Mega Minion. Good fireball to try and deny it back, but that cannon cart is able to clear up just as well. I don't think Will has quick enough responses here, especially with a graveyard of their own. He commits a cannon cart, and that could just be curtains. Some good archers should help clear up the majority of this, but a fireball straight on back will clear them too.
And now we're late into the game. We're seeing these graveyards backed up by more and more plays. There's one more card left to reveal. We'll see if Mushroom's got a bomber tower of their own. They certainly haven't deployed it so far. But yeah, these decks looking incredibly similar to one another. The graveyard coming down once again. The slow attack speed of the cannon cart we've seen doesn't work tremendously well. But the archers will do a job. Fireball opens up a space. I think 1 or 2 skeletons will get through.
I think they will. You can see that now. We're going into overtime. Will at a 1,300 deficit in terms of HP on this left-hand side. That fireball too late means that a lot of that graveyard is already completely squashed. And now it's just a chance for a big counter push from Mushroom here. They have a lot of value to invest as well.
Inevitably, the graveyard will come out. The fireball to clean up the counter units and the snowball as well. It's looking like it's curtains here for Will. It doesn't matter how serious you are, Will. Mushroom, just a little bit more serious-faced.
Indeed he is. And yet again, Will pipped at the post by this player. When it comes to the really important ones, we know that Will shows up and obviously did win that first season, but Mushroom has proven that they are a consistent threat here in this tournament, and I'm so glad to see them going back to those finals.
It's a consistent and a growing threat. You know, Mushroom just kept getting better over the course of last season. It seems to be the same again here. That I think, you know, for Will, it feels like if we're not seeing a difference of decks, we're seeing a difference of execution here, which is an astonishing thing to be able to say about someone, you know, going up against Will, who's known for incredibly crisp play.
Yeah, normally it's Will who comes out on top when you're seeing these dittos, when you're seeing these mirrors, but Mushroom was really great play on the whole there. I think just understanding some of the interactions between those trades a little bit better, and Will not able to come out on top as a result.
All right, let's take a look back at some of those games. So we did go to all 3 games, and you know, I think it really felt like it could go either way, particularly in this first game.
I really did think it was, and it was ever so close. It was really well played by Will as well, to be able to take things on back, and it was just these couple of trades, and this Princess finding a lot of value here that was able to pick him up that way.
Yeah, and of course, when the shoe was on the other foot, the lightning, I love that inevitability it gives the decks. It's, you know, you're dealing with big units, but you're also giving yourself a win condition in a bottle that can just punch its way through. You can see how desperate Will was to get the damage traded back, but ultimately, Mushroom was trading so darn well that by the end it wasn't even close.
It was some stellar stuff, and you saw that Will was trying to find something, but again, when you have those wall breakers invested constantly, finding very little, it really does hurt the way you're trying to play. He was trying to catch Mushroom off guard, but constantly forcing out some of those units.
Yeah, it just didn't feel like Will had such a strong grasp on the defense. We never saw what Mushroom's final card was. If it was the bomb tower, then presumably learning from what was happening with Will here, which is that the bomb tower theoretically should be great against the graveyard, but ultimately it just didn't do enough.
Yeah, sometimes that positioning was a little bit off, or it was invested to try and stop some of the bigger threats that were happening at the time, and it just wasn't there enough to deal with those skeletons that are otherwise going to just tear away at that tower. And maybe it's also that deck construction wasn't necessarily expecting to have to deal with as much graveyard, and sometimes you just get caught off guard by it like that.
So we have got some news about our grand finals. As you can see at the top of your screen, Chocoholic from the Universe of X gets the 1 game advantage in this upcoming best of 5, because of making it through the upper bracket undefeated. Mushroom, they're going to have to win 3 games in a row, the Chocoholics 2. But we have got our bans. From Mushroom, it's going to be the Lava Hand. From Chocoholic, the Graveyard.
He is absolutely sick of it, and I understand. Take away that Graveyard. That last series was a pretty solid performance from Mushroom. Knows how to play that Graveyard effectively, so why not take it away? Whereas that Lava Hound seems to be pretty replete in Chocoholic's repertoire.
Yeah, I mean, it's a deck type to itself, so it makes sense to try and limit the amount of potential bad matchups you can go into. I think as well, for the Graveyard, whenever you don't know for certain the Graveyard isn't in the deck, anytime you make a commit through, you're always worrying, is this going to be the play where I'm suddenly realizing I should have held back because now I'm going to lose?
Yeah, you could play a very varying shell for the Graveyard decks, and that's the big part of it, is no one knows if it's coming. You could be playing something completely different, but obviously seeing it taken away makes that guessing a lot easier, and I think it's really sensible of Mushroom to go for that one. Sorry, for Chocoholic to go for that one.
All right, it's time for our grand finals. Chocoholic against Mushroom. Will this be Chocoholic's chance for revenge? Nice pullback on the miner there to start us off. Does not, crucially, activate the King Tower.
Yeah, unfortunately, too little too late there to be able to get that one. Instead, it's going to be a strong push on the right-hand side with some backup, with some skeletons. Maybe this Musketeer can find the damage that they need. A good Ice Golem does track him away. Those Royal Recruits are still going to be able to land on that left-hand side, if not for a spell.
We'll get through for a couple of early hits, dividing up the damage nicely between the two players. The balloon coming through in the air for Chocoholic gets rid of the tower, but it's minimal exchange here in our first game of the Grand Finals. No heavy hits landing yet.
500 damage onto the right-hand tower, though, with a bit of a start because of that bomb from the from the balloon there. It isn't all too bad. Nice investment of the Barbarian Barrel, meaning that all-important second part of the cannon cart doesn't go down within tower range.
Yeah, I mean, it's ideal where you can use your Princess Tower to get rid of the cannons, because the range isn't tremendous. But it looks like it's Balloon City for both of them. Chocoholic, I don't think they've got a building to divert that away. They're going to have to rely on the pure damage of the Hunter, who's been slowed down by the Snowball, and doesn't quite get their second shot in before the Balloon does its work.
Oh, just about manages to stop it, but gets one more, but still, that's a big whole chunk as 1.5k comes on out in a flash. And now, well, Chocoholic really does have to be that little bit more defensive. You can see Balloon go on in, and they're deciding, well, rather than waiting, why not go all in?
I'm loving this use of Ice Golem from Mushroom here to provide spaces. We've got snowballs aplenty to keep the balloon at bay. So Mushroom with the advantage here in this first game. He's going to be dropping down the balloon again, and we know Chocoholic doesn't have a tremendous answer. We have got the Hunter, but that's pretty much it. Nice with the Fireball to keep the balloon at bay.
Yeah, well played there. This cannon cart doesn't find very much either. It's a very solid situation for Mushroom to find themselves in. They tried to strike back after there was a big investment from Chocoholic, but it took a long time to do that, so they didn't get the entire value out of it. Might be able to find another hit here, especially with the backup of that. That's going to be the tower gone, and there's only 15 seconds left. You need to be quick if you're Chocoholic here.
Yeah, this is a disaster. The combo play of Mushroom proving too difficult as again the Ice Golem buys a few more precious seconds. Chocoholic, they're not getting anywhere near the right-hand tower. The Fireball, the last hurrah from them, and that means the finals draws even with Chocoholic's bonus win, 1 game apiece.
Yeah, good play from Mushroom there, distracting as well those units as they were trying to rush on forward and take their tower. Good call, really good call. And Mushroom making a statement that they are one of the strongest players in this tournament, if not the strongest player in this tournament. Last week, they actually put on a pretty impressive performance, didn't they?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if we're going to be taking some leaves out of Mushroom's book, then if you're Chocoholic, presumably you've got to start thinking pretty hard about those goblin cages. There's incredible answer to any of these siege units.
Yeah, especially because it was so prominent in their last series in their last week against each other. I think Chocoholic absolutely has that on their mind. Electro Spirit coming out early to try and cycle on through, as both players kind of just looking for their time to shine.
We praised the Zappies before for their ability to interrupt, but also putting out a reasonable amount of damage as well. So Chocoholic has definitely changed things up pretty seriously here. The Flying Machine is new, but the Royal Giant is new to the series. We know how powerful it is. There's the Goblin Cage we were hoping for, but it gets torn through pretty quickly. The Giant will fall, but the damage is in there.
Absolutely. The Flying Machine moving on in alone is pretty easy pickings for the Princess Tower there, and also for the Baby Dragon. Interested to see that they actually invested that Baby Dragon, as it already goes down to half health. That's a lot of damage, and they're only going to find one hit back. That means that Chocoholic does have a big advantage in terms of elixir here, and we'll be looking to pressure it with these Royal Guardsmen.
Yeah,
Or recruits, sorry.
The recruits, yeah, it's a great way to make use of that elixir advantage. There's a ton of bodies on the boards. The Flying Machine will pour out the damage from the air, and mean there won't be quite as much of a distraction. There's the Hogs. We saw them work exceptionally well before. The barrel is only a soft counter, as one of the Hogs will get brought in to activate the King Tower, but it doesn't get the rest of them, and that's a very solid hit in there for our University of Excellence student.
The thing is it worth having that King Tower activated? I think if you're Chocoholic here, you're going, well, yeah. You want to be able to take that tower quickly and end this game before it goes too late. Otherwise, you know that that Royal Giant really can reign supreme.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sacrifice that had to be made, I think. So the Royal Giant comes in once again, but Chocoholic, where's your answers? That's first of all going to be the cage, then the Flying Machine up in the sky while the Brute buys time. The Royal Giant is not staying alive for a long time, but that Mega Minion is doing a decent job of dealing with the air.
Yeah, we've seen just how terrifying these Mega Minions can be. They deal with some of these air units so well, especially because it's not always air-to-air from them, so they get a lot of value out of that one. Going to be pretty easy to deal with these pushes for now, but there's still a decent amount of chunking coming out from Chocoholic here. Be careful, however, that Royal Giant on the right-hand side is a big opportunity.
We can see, though, that Chocoholic is answering this pretty much the same way every time. This time, though, the Tornado will bring the Flying Machine back in. The Royal Giant gets some damage in, but we have got, again, a pretty decent answer. Chocoholic still stays ahead.
Yeah, you really got to be that little bit more careful here. If you're Mushroom, you need to find an opening. Sure, you can play this later game, but if you commit that Royal Giant there, imagine how much it's going to go on through. You see the Royal Hogs come on down. This is a huge opportunity, but the cage is waiting in the back pocket.
So Fireball opening up the space. The Hogs just about get through. Two of them survive. Mushroom going down to nearly 1,000 on the left-hand side. There's nothing comparable for Chocoholic. The Flying Machine getting incredible value here, just cleaning up so much of the stragglers.
He's pushing on forward. Do trade a little bit of damage back and forth. That Mega Minion can be ever so problematic. Royal recruits to try and counteract some of the pressure this Royal Giant is putting on in. Cage again to be able to gum it on up, as it's already losing so much HP. It's already gone.
Yeah, we've not seen the Royal Giant perform in the same way we saw it before. It's going down too quickly. It's being held in place. The Golden Cage provides too much time. Again, the Hogs coming out demanding an answer from Mushroom, but it's again only the barrel, which means it's just taking some health off. It's not stopping the hit from going through. Royal Giant on the right-hand side. It's going to get heavy hits in. Lightning gives it a little bit more space to work with, but there we go. Mushroom pulled it off.
Chocoholic needed to play that game pacier, take more risks realistically, because that Royal Giant in the late game will eventually just chunk you out. You make one slip up, it's all over, and that's exactly what happened there. Mushroom now on match point. Chocoholic just cannot find a way on in here, yet again.
And it felt so incredibly close in the last game. You're right, you know, there was a timer ticking away. You know, once that Royal Giant had more support around it, you know, the counters, such as they were, started working a lot less, especially when they can all just get lightninged away.
Yeah, the electricity that was coming on through to really shock them off the board was ever so problematic. Mushroom constantly having ways to clear off a lot of the threats that Chocoholic had, and the fact that it all got gummed up, that those Royal Recruits weren't able to actually hit tower very much, was obviously very key, because Chocoholic fell behind in tempo, never really got to that big opportunity.
So for Chocoholic, they made it through the upper bracket, but this is do or die time for them. If they lose here, they are donezo, and Mushroom will take a second competition in a row. That's the accolade that Chocoholic was looking for themselves coming out of week one. And it's certainly going to smart if they can't manage it or someone else does.
Yeah, they really don't want to find themselves in this position. Hunter comes on through, but that's a good snowball. Buying a lot of time. There's already one hit. Will they be able to get the second one in? Not quite. But still a huge chunk to start things off. And this push coming on back might not be enough. The Skeletons to try and buy some time. Will they be able to deal with this Royal Giant before it takes way too much off the board?
Earthquake to follow up. That's a good trade of damage back, which is going to put Chocoholic into the lead. You say, you know, a moment's lapse in concentration will send everything to hell as the balloon comes in once again. We see that Snowball working almost like a freeze to provide a little bit of extra space. The balloon is being held relatively well in place, but the damage isn't quite there to stop the right-hand tower going perilously low.
Yeah, you got to be careful if you are Chocoholic here. You know things could turn around easily, but with a lot of time left on the board, I think there's a real opportunity. Even if this tower does go down, there's a real chance for them to just strike on back and take the opposing right-hand tower back.
Yeah, and I think you're right, it could be a sacrifice play here because it's going to be so hard to deny that last bit of damage from getting it through with the miner in play in this game. Chocoholic is short on Elixir, so they're not going to pull together the combo play of multiple giants.
However, this Royal Giant on its own, if unanswered, could easily get through this one. Bomb Tower, but will chunk up all of that one. Because the Earthquake comes on through, we'll dispatch those buildings pretty easily.
Yeah, I think the Earthquake's fantastic for dealing with those cages, with dealing with all buildings that might stand in the way of the Giant, as the Snowball has been an incredible tool for Mushroom here. In honestly, the whole competition so far, the Royal Giant, I think Chocoholic's aware they have to get this right-hand tower down, even if they're going to lose their own. Otherwise, in 25 seconds, they are done.
They really are. It's got to be ever so quick. Just one spell towards it could spell doom. You can see that miner go on through. It's going to get that one hit in, and it is over. 10 seconds. They've got to be quick. They don't have much time, and they don't have the spells either. This Earthquake just doesn't deal that same kind of damage anymore. And with this Royal Giant getting blocked, with it getting pulled away by the Bomb Tower, that is curtains for Chocoholic as Mushroom takes this series 3-0. 3-1. Who cares about that advantage from the upper bracket? Mushroom will take it all.
Oh my gosh, that was so well done from the University of Bastion and Mushroom. So, as we said, that makes 2 tournaments in a row, and as you pointed out, coming from the lower bracket as well, makes it all the more impressive. But Chocoholic, it's an echo of last time round. I mean, actually, Mushroom doing even better this time, you know, because Chocoholic last week was able to get around. This time, none at all.
Yeah, it's a little bit sad to see for Chocoholic there, but these Royal Giants were ever so problematic for them. They just could not deal with it. As well, these balloons that we saw have come out in many a place and still not getting banned away. You might ban away the Lava Hound, but it's still not going to be enough.
Yeah, I mean, it was so spectacular with the Snowball. That's something which I haven't seen a ton of myself, but it worked incredibly well. And in Game 2, it still felt like a very winnable situation for Chocoholic so much of the time, but I mean, these hogs were really strong.
Yeah, they really were. They found a lot of damage, but when it came down to it, they just couldn't quite finish things out. And Chocoholic needed to be quicker, more aggressive, and they just wasted a lot of time here. And, well, you can see it right there. The Royal Giant finishes it off, takes us to that advantaged state. And this third game was just kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that there just wasn't enough of a direct answer to what Mushroom was putting out here. Again, Balloon, Snowball, you've got the miners in there as well, and then of course the Bomb Tower, the final nail in the coffin there for Chocoholic. They had to know it was coming, and ultimately the Earthquake wasn't enough.
Yeah, it's not quite as strong as it once was, and I think a lot of players are now overestimating it, to be completely honest with you. A lot of them using it for that face damage, obviously also for dealing with buildings, but kind of going for that 2v1, and it doesn't 2-for-1, it doesn't really do that in the same way anymore. I think it may be getting a little bit overvalued. So interesting to see if teams change that up, if players change that up at all. But Chocoholic, I think it's back to the drawing board here if they couldn't pick up this win in these finals again versus Mushroom.
We are receiving information about how the final points landed, though, after all is said and done. So Chocoholic, from going first, second, and second, they remain ahead of Mushroom by just 40 points, which is almost nothing. But they still remain there. I mean, they've got the consistency from before. It's that first week where Mushroom came fourth that's holding them back for now.
Yeah, that most stacked week was really difficult for them. Mushroom getting taken down by some pretty heavy contenders. But week 3, they do win, and they're still within a shot of that first spot. I think they're absolutely within a shout.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're just seeing Mushroom going from strength to strength here. Will did send me some messages between the games just saying that, they got a little too confident in their games. They have the serious face on, but perhaps a little bit of cockiness as well. And as you've seen, it only takes a moment of hesitation, a moment of a slight mistake there, and players like Mushroom, they're going to be all over you.
They absolutely are. A bit hoisted by his own petard, honestly, because he's the one who trained him up to be quite that good. A little bit bittersweet, to be sure, but Mushroom, he's absolutely rolling there.
All right, guys, so that brings us to the end of week number 3 of the 8 total. We bring you incredibly strong performance out of Mushroom there for Chocoholic. So close, but yet so far, and Will still going to live up to their own hype. Do you think they'll manage to do it next week?
It's always hard to say. Will has always got that possibility to take it. You know what? I'm a betting man. I bet for Chocoholic in that first best of 3. I think Will make it next week. I think he'll win it.
All right, guys. So before we go, please do check out our sponsors here at the Amazon University Esports Clash Royale competition. Unite students, Logitech, and Twitch student. Without them, none of this will be possible. We will, of course, have CSGO tomorrow, and then League of Legends and Rainbow Siege 6 on Wednesday, Teamfight Tactics on Thursday, and the Women's League of Legends on Friday. And of course, if you haven't already, please do check out the Newell on Twitter, and of course on Discord as well. Even if you're not yet a university student, but you're going to be going soon, go and make friends, meet some other Clash Royale players, and perhaps you too will be playing in next year's competition. But Apolio and Dr. Watson will be back next week to bring you week number 4 of Clash Royale competition. For now, though, I've been Counterfeit, John by Rook, and produced by Patrick. We'll see you guys again soon.